Welcome back with a smiling face. Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. Luna of the Lost Moon. Episode 10. Chapter 149. Lola's POV. His pupils were dilated and I giggled at the look on his face. His hands laid limp by his side, his lips parted and closed but no sounds came out of them. His pupils were dilated. At the sight of his, my mouth watered and I wanted to taste him so bad. I walked slowly to him, making sure that our eyes were locked the whole time. I wrapped my hands around his neck and pulled his head closer to mine. I locked eyes with him and parted my lips like I was about to kiss him, but I whispered in his ear instead. "You were being bold and bad roughly 20 minutes ago, baby. Cat got your tongue," I said softly, and he groaned before holding me closer by my waist. I could feel his pressing into my skin, and a sense of pride that I was the one who made him that way with a glance overwhelmed me. I palmed him and softly bit his earlobe, to which he responded by smacking my cheeks before grabbing them. "It's broad daylight and Mom might check on you anytime soon since you claimed you were not feeling too good. Are you sure you still want to do this?" he asked huskily, his hands never leaving me. "I don't care what time it is nor what anyone thinks, I'll have you whenever I want, however I want you." I placed a chaste kiss on his lips. "Whatever my queen wants, my queen gets," he responded. "You really mean that, right?" He nodded his head eagerly and I giggled. "You can't take it back, I hope you know that." I asked him again and he nodded. "Get down on your knees," I whispered in his ear, and he froze. "You can't do that. Whatever I want, I get, remember?" I continued to whisper in his ear and his body started shaking slightly. Slowly, he moved back from me and went down on his knees, maintaining eye contact the whole time. I grinned at him and rubbed his chin before placing one of my legs over his shoulder. He was still tall while kneeling, so I almost fell while placing my legs on his shoulder. He steadied me and looked down to correctly place my leg over his shoulder. His eyes widened when he saw my crotchless panties and the wetness that was already pooling at my entrance. "Like what you see?" I asked sultrily, and he nodded, his eyes never leaving my lips. "Good boy," I moaned out, and he groaned like it pained him to watch me without being able to devour me. "You want a taste of this, don't you?" I purred. You know I do," he answered me and reached to touch me, but I slapped his hands away and he looked at me with a mixture of hurt and shock. "Exactly what I wanted. You were naughty before and you thought you could get away with it. Will that not be unfair?" I spoke to him in the manner a mother will speak to their child, and I saw the conflicts in his eyes. He was so turned on, yet he wanted control. Jasmine was purring in my head and I was loving every moment of it. I've always wanted to be in charge, no better time than now. I took my leg off his shoulder and stepped away from him. He made to stand up, but I gave him a look. "I don't remember telling you to get up, Daddy," I told him as I walked towards the door. "Stay right there and be good for me." I locked the door and went to lie down on the bed, spreading my legs as far as they would go. "Crawl over and get what you want, Daddy," I called out to him, and he wasted no time actually crawling over. Even while being under my command, he looked so authoritative, and I slowly lost the will to be in charge. I suddenly wanted to be controlled. He locked eyes with me. I closed my eyes as he stood up with a look of determination on his face. I heard sounds of clothes being discarded and mentally prepared myself for what was about to come. Open your eyes, baby. His deep voice reached my ears and I opened my eyes to see him. You like what you see? You want a taste? He asked and I nodded my head, but he just chuckled evilly. I was enjoying every moment of it. Occasionally he'd call me, I just get more turned on. 5 minutes. Let's just stay this way for 5 minutes, he said and I nodded. You know I love you, right? He asked and I nodded. And I love you more than life itself, I smiled at him, hoping he did not see the sadness in my eyes. I wanted to stay that way forever, but good things don't last. With thoughts of what's to come on my mind, I slept off. Adrian's POV. I listened to her heartbeat. The moment felt so perfect and I felt so complete and at peace. I made to stand up, but she wrapped herself around me tighter, making my heart flutter wildly. Please, don't leave me, she whispered in a sad tone, tugging at my heartstrings. I'll never leave you again, my queen. Not if I can help it. I kissed her forehead and she went back to sleeping. My heart broke for her and it took a lot of willpower to not find out what was going on with her. I was going to follow what Selene said and trust her in everything she decides to do. After spending almost 30 minutes in the shower, I left. Lola was in pain. I rushed to her and tried to wake her up, but she kept crying in her sleep. Please, please, you can't do that to me. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, she kept on repeating while tears streamed down her face. I scooped her into my arms and gently rocked her while trying to get her to open her eyes. It's okay, baby. You're okay. Please, open your eyes for me. I got you, I said to her as I rocked her and wished I could take all her pains away. She opened her eyes slowly and looked around in fear until she realized she was in my arms. She hugged me tightly and cried into my chest. Was it a bad dream? I asked and she nodded. I love you so much, Adrian. You know that, right? She asked with a hiccup and I nodded. I know you love me, but I love you more and I'd do anything for you, baby, I said, but she kept on crying. I love you. I love you so much. You and Crescent Moon Pack gave me everything I never had growing up. This is my home, you're my home, and I promise that this will pass soon, she said like she was trying to assure herself. Is there something you'd like to tell me? I asked her, but she shook her head. Not at all, Adrian. Do you still want to go on the date you agreed to? She changed the topic and I allowed her. I'll allow her to tell me whatever is bothering her whenever she is ready. I'll go on a date with you, I already told you that, kissed her forehead and she smiled a little. Do you have an idea of where you want us to go? I asked her and she blushed slightly. I did not think about that, she muttered and I burst out laughing. Hey, stop laughing, she pouted, prompting me to laugh harder. I just wanted to spend time with you, I did not put so much thought into it, she whispered before burying her head into my chest again. She felt so perfect in my arms. She was right. She's my home and I know that I'll just do about anything to protect her. Even if it meant setting the world ablaze. Where do you want to go? Is there some place you'd like to see? I asked her after a moment of silence. I don't know, I just want to be in a quiet place with you, she said softly and my heart pumped faster. We're one lucky bastard, Daxon said with pride in my head. We sure are, I replied to him. How about I plan the date and you just look pretty and allow me to take care of you? I asked her and she became red, making me chuckle softly. That's totally fine too, she replied and tried to stifle a yawn. You're feeling sleepy again? She nodded her head and nestled closer to my chest. I'll lay down with you, let's get you thoroughly cleaned and changed. I carried her bridal style before she could protest. I can walk and clean up by myself, she tried to argue but I shut her up with a kiss on her forehead. And I want to do everything to make my queen comfortable. You can't hinder me from doing that. She stopped protesting and time went by quickly. I washed her while she washed mine. She tried to take it further but I refused her. I don't think she'll be able to take it if I decide to take her again, so I controlled my urges and took her back to bed. After changing her into a boy short and one of my shirts, we laid together to sleep. She seemed disturbed and far away for a while before her breaths evened out and she snuggled deeper into me. With my hands placed firmly on her body and her heartbeats calming me down, I fell into a deep slumber myself. Lola's POV. The nightmare that woke me up was about Damon. He wiped everyone out and made me watch as he tore my mate apart with Alicia by his side. It was a heart-wrenching sight and I don't ever want to go through that. It felt so real, like a message was being passed across. If I refuse to pay the price, my loved ones will. I'll never allow that to happen. Not if I can help it. Lola's POV. It was nighttime when I woke up. The room was eerily quiet and it sent chills up my spine. I automatically reached for Adrian but his space was empty and cold, indicating that he had left the bedroom for a while. What if something had happened to him and he was suffering alone somewhere? The thoughts had barely formed in my head when I sprang up and ran out of the room, ignoring the fact that I wasn't wearing any shoes nor decent clothes. I just wanted to make sure he was safe. I rushed down the stairs hoping and praying that I was just being paranoid and he was fine. My heart almost stopped in my chest when I got to the base of the stairs and he was there in the living room, watching TV on mute while sipping on a glass of whiskey. My knees gave out beneath me and I fell to the ground in relief. The sound seemed to jolt him out of whatever reverie he was in and he rushed to where I was. Lola, baby, what's wrong? What happened? He asked rapidly as he held me to his chest like I was going to break any time soon. I heard a sound that seemed like someone was sobbing and it registered that I was the one crying. Hey, what happened? Please, talk to me, baby. I'm right here for you, he pleaded. He's here. He's here. That same word kept ringing in my head and I hung on to him for dear life. It's okay, my queen. It's okay, I promise, he kept repeating till I calmed down. What happened? Did you have a bad dream? He asked me after I had calmed down and I shook my head. You scared me, baby. What happened to you? He gently probed me. You were not there when I woke up and the whole house was silent. I couldn't hear anything either, so I got scared. I thought you left me all alone, I thought you had been taken away from me, I said and fresh tears ran down my cheeks. No one will ever take him away from me, not even the moon goddess. I had to talk to Nathan about something and I did not want to wake you up. He just left a while ago, so I decided to have a drink before coming back to bed, he explained, and I calmed down a bit. I should have calmed down. The paranoia I felt dimmed all of my senses and I couldn't hear his heartbeat nor properly smell him. I took a deep breath and his scent filled the entirety of my being, calming me down. I'm sorry I scared you. I'm never leaving you, I promise, he reassured me and I nodded. I was about to open my mouth when my stomach growled loudly, making me cover my face in embarrassment. Adrian laughed loudly and I hit his chest. Looks like your stomach is trying to eat itself, let's get you fed, okay? He said before standing up with me in his arms like I weigh nothing at all. It wasn't until I was in his arms that I realized how underdressed I was and I started shivering. Are you cold? He asked and I nodded my head. What were you thinking coming downstairs like this? He looked at my feet, and without slippers too. I just batted my eyelashes at him. In my defense, I wasn't thinking. I just wanted to find my mate. I'm sorry, I whispered softly and held onto his shirt, feeling his body heat against mine. He set me on one of the kitchen stools and removed his shirt. He placed the shirt on my lap before placing a kiss on my forehead. You're so silly sometimes, but I love you either way, he said as he lifted his lips from my forehead and I glared at him. I am not silly, silly, I humphed and crossed my hands over my chest like a petulant child. Yeah. Just sit down and look pretty while I whip something up for us. He patted my head and I made to slap his hands away from my head, but his reflexes were faster. He made his way around the counter and started bringing out ingredients to make something for us. What are you making? I asked to fill in the silence. Why don't you watch and see, you curious thing, he replied to me with a smile. I rolled my eyes at him before making myself comfortable watching him. He moved around with the grace of a cat. His muscles contract nicely every time he moves them. Even though I just had him that afternoon, I could feel myself getting turned on by seeing him do such tasks. What is wrong with me? Our mate looks so hot right now, Jasmine said in my head. I want to jump his bone, she squealed excitedly, making me chuckle. What's so funny, baby? He asked me and I shrugged. You know I can hear you right? He pointed to his head and I immediately put my block up. I shouldn't be so careless around him, not in crucial times like this. We could have talked about what the moon goddess said and he would have caught on. I can't have anyone interfere with my plans. Soon, he finished cooking and served me food. It smelled heavenly and even tasted better. He watched me while I ate. I even offered him some of my food, but he refused and made sure I ate everything he put on my plate. After being stuffed to the point of not being able to move, he cleared my plate and cleaned up. Rose doesn't like a dirty kitchen and she'll be pissed if she finds her kitchen in a mess the next day. I offered to help him, but he gave me a glare that had me glued to my seat. A thought suddenly occurred to me. Are we still going on a date tomorrow? I asked him and he nodded his head. Of course we're going. I will never pass up a chance to spend time with you, he replied with a smile that made my heart race. Tomorrow then, I'll start putting my plans into action. Lola's POV the whole night, I barely got any sleep. My brain was in overdrive and all I kept thinking about was how to get over this phase as quickly as possible. As much as I wanted the war to be over and done with because it will mean peace and safety for everyone else, it will mean my end. Why are you wide awake? Adrian asked in his sleepy voice. Why are you awake also? I asked him back to deviate from the fact that I wasn't getting any sleep and he caught me. Your steady heartbeat calms me down and helps me to sleep well, but you seem worried about something. It's been beating wildly and pulling me out of my sleep, he said, and my mouth opened in a silent "oh." I definitely wasn't expecting that answer, I mumbled, and he pulled me close to his chest. I like to surprise you, he said with a kiss to my forehead, making me blush slightly. So, tell me. Tell me what has been worrying you. I've noticed that you've been acting weird since yesterday morning, he said with a hurt voice, and I felt bad. I opened my mouth to refute his claims, but he put his fingers to my lips. I want the truth, baby. Please, don't lie to me, he pleaded, his tone and eyes begging me to say the truth. My lungs closed in panic and tears sprang to my eyes. I couldn't tell him what was going on with me. He can't know what the outcome of the war will be, he will make sure that my life is replaced by his. Did I upset you? He asked worriedly, and I shook my head with a watery smile. No, you did not upset me. I just feel selfish for making you worry about me. It's the oncoming war that has me jittery and worried. I'm scared, Adrian, I whispered to him. What if I fail? What if everyone ends up dead and I'm left all alone in this world again? I said weakly. I have nightmares about everyone getting wiped out. I'm scared. I'm really scared, I bunched his shirt in my hands as I whispered that last part. We're going to win this war, my queen, Adrian said with a determination that had me worried. Did the moon goddess tell him that his life will be taken in exchange too? Did he agree to it? Why is he so sure that we'll win? 1,010 questions ran through my head and I lost track of what he said. And you'll never be alone in this world, the last part was what I caught on to. How are you so sure? Did the moon goddess tell you something when she came to you? I asked, curiosity getting the best of me. She told me I had to trust you and everything will be fine, he said sincerely, and a tear rolled down my cheek. I was relieved at the fact that he's safe, but that also meant my fate was sealed in stone and there was no getting out of it. A win is a win, right? That's a relief, I guess, I said with a smile that I hope doesn't seem fake to him. I believe in you, baby, he pulled me closer to him and placed a kiss on my forehead. You're going to do very well, I just know, he said with so much certainty, it made my heart hurt. But I'm not going to make it out of it alive, I wanted to scream out but I held onto his shirt instead. I have a surprise planned for you on our date today, he said after a while. I pulled back to look at his face and he had a big grin on his face, making me smile in return. What's that? I asked him but he shook his head. Now. It won't be a surprise if I spill what it is about, will it? He asked and I pouted. Why did you tell me then? I asked with a frown and he laughed, his body shaking and muscles contracting nicely. Just because, he replied, and I punched him lightly on his shoulder. Ha, that hurts, he held his shoulder and his face contorted in pain, making me panic. I'm so sorry, I repeated over and over as I stood up and frantically checked him over. I swear I didn't use much of my energy. I was just playing with you. I didn't mean hurt you, I promise, I rambled as I touched his shoulder and tried to heal him with my powers. If you were going to worry, why did you hit me in the first place? He asked. I looked at his face and that was when it occurred to me that he was faking it. You lied to me, I glared at him and he shrugged before he started laughing. You can't do that to me. I was sincerely worried that I hurt you, I said to him with my hands crossed over my shoulder in anger. Yes, I should have noticed that he was faking it, but everything has me on edge nowadays and I just can't help being overly sensitive when it comes to him. He tried to hold me but I moved away from his touch. Oh, come on. I was just joking with you, he said with a pout and I couldn't help the small smile that graced my face. When he acts cute like that, I can't even stay mad at him. I allowed myself to be pulled to his chest and snuggled against him. It's 2 a.m. already. Let's get some shut-eye. I have a lot prepared for you today and you'll need your energy for it, he said, his voice sending tingles to my spine. I couldn't help but think of other things that needed New York energy. Get your mind out of that dirty place and sleep if you don't want us to cancel our plans today. I promise that you won't be able to walk if I take you on what you're thinking. His voice rang in my head and I clenched my thighs. That sounds very promising, I replied to him, hoping he'll change my mind and take me as promised, but he just shook his head with laughter rumbling in his chest. Get some sleep and I might reward you if you are a good girl, he whispered into my ears. I did not need more convincing to close my eyes and let myself be pulled into the world of unconsciousness. Lola's POV, that smells so good, I should grab it, was the thought that woke me up. My eyes were still closed but the heavenly smell refuses to go, so I thought I was in a dream. I thought it was still a dream and pinched myself. Pain exploded on my arm and that brought me to complete consciousness. Firm, strong hands held mine and gently rubbed where the pain came from. I opened my eyes and was met with my mate's discolored ones. Why did you hurt yourself? Another nightmare? He asked and I shook my head. I smelled something heavenly but I thought I was still in a dream, so I pinched myself to be sure, I said sheepishly. You're so cute, he tapped my nose before pointing towards the tray that was at the other side of the bed. I brought you breakfast in bed. The tray had a lot of food in it. From toast bread to bacon to eggs, there was coffee too and a lot of fruits. Tears sprung to my eyes and I honestly had no idea why. I sniffled and he looked at me in worry. Did I do anything wrong? He asked worriedly. Is there something you'll like me to change? Tell me, I'll do anything you want me to do, I promise, he said, and I laughed through my tears. No, no, I said as I laughed. You didn't do anything wrong. I held his chin in my hands and placed a kiss on his jaw. I'm so happy you did all of these for me. You're a very amazing mate, you know that. I asked him before kissing him. After pulling back from the kiss, he placed his forehead against mine. Since when have you been awake? That platter looks like it took a lot of time, I said after a moment of silence. He pulled back from me and brought the tray closer to me. My mouth watered at seeing the tray closely and I picked toast bread, taking a bite before he could answer my question. The flavors burst on my tongue and I moaned a little. You seem to forget that we have to go out today. His voice dropped and became huskier, making me stop what I was eating. I'm sorry, I said sheepishly. I had some help from Mom, he said, and I was confused. What? You asked me how I was able to whip up all of these, he said, and I nodded. Talking of that, how's Rose? She must be angry at me for leaving abruptly yesterday, I said as I picked up a fruit and bit into it. More like she was worried about you. You said you had a headache and that was why you left yesterday, he said, making me blush. I wonder why I had to lie, I retorted. Just eat. We have a long day ahead of us. He placed a kiss on my forehead and stood to leave the room. I placed my tray aside and made to stand up from the bed, but he held me by my shoulder. Where do you think you're going, baby? He asked with a frown, and I rubbed the back of my neck. How do I explain that I do not want to let him out of my sight? My brain automatically instructed me to follow him. I did not even think about it. I thought you wanted to go and eat without me, I lied, hoping that he did not see past my lies. When he did not say anything and kept looking at me, I let out a nervous laugh. I should have asked you if you've eaten, my bad. Have you eaten? I asked with a shaky smile. Yes, I have. Now finish your food, wash up, dress up and be ready in an hour, he said with a tone that left no room for argument. I ate as much as my stomach could take and went to take a hot shower. With one decision in mind, I made sure I shaved my legs and important parts of my body. You did not care about all of these yesterday when you seduced him, Jasmine teased me. Today is a very special day, so shut it, I replied to her. You won't even be in your human form for this, she reminded me, but my heart was already set on what I wanted to do. Mind your own business, I huffed and continued what I was doing. Your business is my business, she snickered, and I just ignored her. Busybody werewolf. Hey, I can hear you, she said like she was offended, and I mentally poked my tongue at her, shutting her up successfully. After taking my bath, I towel dried my hair and left it to dry before walking into the closet to pick something to wear. Nothing of mine seemed to be right for the occasion, and I almost gave up and wore anything before an idea popped into my head. I went to Adrian's side of the closet and picked one out of his numerous shirts. I put it on and I was dwarfed by it. I remembered a brown corset top that I had lying around in my closet and paired it with it. I rolled up the sleeves and held it with his cufflinks. Something felt amiss, so I unbuttoned 2 buttons of his shirt to show a little bit of cleavage, just enough to make him drool. I took out my brown knee boot that matched the corset I had on, and I totally loved what I was seeing. I curled my hair to give it a wavy look, applied some mascara, a little bit of eyeshadow to make my eyes pop, and finished off the look with a nude lip gloss. I smiled at myself in the mirror and twirled happily, ready to go on our date. Just then, I heard the door open and strong, steady footsteps that I'd know anywhere came closer to the closet. I turned and faced the door just as he entered the closet, and his eyes found me. You're ready? I came to get a shirt. I did not know. The words died in his mouth as he took in my outfit. He swallowed and his eyes became a tad darker. Is that my shirt? He asked huskily, and I nodded my head with a giggle. You like Adrian's POV? You like it? F me if I don't love what I saw in front of me as I entered the closet to pick a shirt. I knew she was in there before I entered because her sweet smell was all over the place. I saw that she was already dressed, but I didn't pay attention to the details since I was so focused on getting my shirt and getting out. I didn't want to be distracted by her in any way. That plan went down the drain when I saw that she was wearing my shirt and she looked so good in it, sending all the blood in my body. My words died on my tongue and my feet moved on their own accord towards her. I held her by her waist and pulled her to me, breathing her heavenly scent in. Her hands went around my neck and she smiled brightly at me, melting my insides. You still haven't answered my question, she looked into my eyes expectantly as she spoke. If my reaction isn't answer enough, I don't think my words will be enough, I said before kissing her nose. She scrunched her nose, adding to her cuteness. I still want to hear it, she grinned up at me, earning a soft chuckle from me. I love everything about you, my queen. Even if you wore a potato sack, you'll still look drop-dead gorgeous, I said and she became red. You're just saying that because I'm your mate, she muttered and I shook my head in laughter. A woman will surely act like a woman, no matter the age. Luckily, I saw Mom use that trick a lot on Dad while he was still alive. You're the most beautiful woman alive, mate or not. I'm just glad the moon goddess paired me with the best mate, I told her and she blushed harder. Thank goddess for the love between my parents, I was able to pick up one or two. Not that I was lying about any of the things I said. I thought you came in to pick a shirt, she reminded me and I face-palmed. I wonder who distracted me, I glared at her jokingly, making her giggle with one of her hands over her mouth. Would you like me to help you pick out something? She asked and I shook my head, earning an eye roll from her. I pulled away from her, ignoring the way she almost panicked but controlled herself. Nat, I can do that myself. Mom wants to see you downstairs by the way, she nodded and seemed to hesitate before placing a soft kiss on my cheeks and going downstairs to see Mom. Why did you lie to her? Dixon asked through our mind link and I sighed. First off, you saw how hot she looks. My patience was running thin and we might not go on our date if she stayed longer than that, I replied to him with a groan, trying to adjust my pants. And secondly? He asked. Mom actually asked about her. She did not just call for her like I insinuated, so technically, I didn't lie, I replied to him and he tsked. I picked a shirt and my keys before making my way downstairs. I heard Mom and Lola talking in a hushed tone but I couldn't make out what they were saying. They stopped conversing when I walked into the living room and Lola had a mischievous look in her eyes and Mom looked at me like she was onto something. Why do I feel like I walked into a trap? I asked cautiously but they both burst out laughing, making me more wary than I was already. Lola stood up and gave Mom a kiss on both of her cheeks. I'll see you when we get back, Rose. You take care of yourself while I'm out and you can always call me if you need anything, she said before adding, I'll appreciate it if you don't call me while I'm out today though, she said and Mom laughed at her before shaking her head. Go out and have fun, my babies, Mom said. Don't worry about me and make the most of today, she said before shooing us out of the house. Shall we? I reached for her hand and she happily her hands in mine. I led her to my car and made her sit before going to my side of the car. When I entered and she grinned at me happily. That was the happiest I've seen her since she got back to the pack and I plan to keep that happiness permanent, no matter what. Why do I still feel like she's hiding something from us? Dixon asked in my head. I mentally shrugged. If I can't make her open up to me completely, I can manage to make her happy for as long as possible. So where are we going? Her voice brought me out of my thoughts and I turned to her with a smile. Wouldn't you like to know? I tapped her nose with a smile and she swatted my hands away, making me laugh. She's too cute for her own good. That's why I asked, She rolled her eyes at me before crossing her hands over her chest with fake anger. You just have to wait and see, baby. Now, use your seat belt and we'll be on our way. As soon as her anger came, it vanished, and she started chattering happily soon. The short car ride was a torture for me because my shirt kept riding up her thighs and her milky skin called out to me. To be touched, to be marked, to make sure that no one else ever touches what is mine. Oh we're going to our spot, she clapped excitedly when I stopped the car at the entrance of the pathway leading to our spot. You made it seem like a big deal though, she turned to me as she spoke, I even dressed up for this, she motioned to her body with her hands. And I promised you that I will make this one a memorable one for you, didn't I? I asked her and she tentatively nodded her head like she was trying to figure out what was going through my head. Fine, I believe you, she said and I gave her a soft smile. I got out of my car and went around the car to open hers. Here goes nothing. Lola's POV. Are we not there yet? I whined for the 5th time and heard my mate sigh beside me. I know we'll get to where the lake is soon but something in me wants to stress him for no reason. I wanted to behave like the couples I watched in the movies Lila made us watch during girls' night out. Where the girls just annoy their partner for no reason and they still get pampered. I guess you're living your dream after all, Jasmine snickered in my head, making me roll her eyes at her. Or you're just jealous that it's not you that's being showered with love and attention, I jabbed at her and she scoffed. Please. I'm you, you're me. We're one, doer. If you're being showered with love attention, I am too, dumbass, she retorted but I wasn't going to go down without a fight. Last time I checked, you're a wolf and I'm the pretty human that is always pampered, I stuck out my tongue at her and she just clicked hers. The fact remains that I won. How much longer? I asked again but he ignored me as usual. If I had known we would be going into the woods, I would have worn something more suitable for walking, I started complaining but he moved on like he did not hear what I was saying. My legs hurt in these boots and I feel like something is going to crawl into my shirt, I was still talking but he cut me off. You mean my shirt? He asked with a raised eyebrow but I decided to be petty and ignore him like he's been ignoring me too. I feel like something is going to crawl under my shirt. Twigs might get lodged into my hair. It took me almost an hour to get this look and you are almost ruining it. He must have been tired of listening to me complain because he swept me off my feet bridal style and carried me like I weigh nothing. You, what are you doing? I can walk by myself perfectly fine, I managed to get out through my stutter. I believe you were complaining about your feet hurting from the moment we started on this pathway. Just relax and let me do this for you, okay? He said and continued walking. I fixed my gaze on jaw and beautiful side profile, drinking in his gorgeousness. I'm one lucky girl, I thought to myself and snuggled into his chest. His chest vibrated with laughter, making me smile. My breath caught in my throat when the lake came into view. He gently dropped me and my feet moved on their own accord towards the setting in front of me. I heard a gasp and it took me a while to realize that the sound came from me. I was so mesmerized by what was in front of me that I did not know when Adrian reached my back and he wrapped his arms around me. "You like what you see?" he asked me and I nodded my head in a daze. I was touched by all I saw and even wondered how he managed to get it all done. "Since when did you plan this? You've been waiting for me to ask you on a date before." I turned around in his arms and wrapped my arms around his neck. "I would make anything happen for you, baby. All you have to do is say the word." He kissed my forehead gently but I pulled him in for a kiss after he pulled away. I meant it to be a soft and quick kiss but it quickly escalated when he nibbled softly on my lips and my self-control went with the wind. I plunged my tongue into his mouth and he returned the kiss with the same fervor. Our tongues fought for dominance which I lost to him. It wasn't until I felt like I was going to die if I didn't breathe that I pulled back from the kiss. He squealed my cheeks softly, making me gasp softly. Thank you so much, Adrian," I whispered while he just nodded with so much love and admiration in his eyes. I turned around to really take in the view. One side of the lake had a table set for two. The sweet smell of varieties of food was evident in the air and I smiled. The other side had an open tent set up. From where I stood, I could see the bed set up with flowers and candles, even though the candles were not lit yet. "Candles? It's daytime," I questioned him but he shrugged with a mischievous smile on his face. Good to know I'm not the only one that had a motive. I shook my head at him and made my way to the table that was set up. On getting closer, I saw that flower petals were scattered around the table too. He pulled out a chair for me and made me seat before disappearing into the tent. Before I could blink, our table was already filled with a lot of food, from appetizers to main dishes to a delicious-looking chocolate cake that he refused to allow me take a bite from. I told him that a little sugar never hurt anyone but he still refused. All my anger vanished when I took the first bite from the food laid before us. Oh my goddess, this is so good, I sighed dreamily, making him laugh. A sound that I wanted to record so that I could listen to it forever. The rest of the date was fun. We talked about random things and laughed at every and any silly thing we could think of. It was everything I wanted and more. My mind was off the war that was looming ahead the whole time. I felt so happy and on top of the world inside the bubble we created for ourselves. I only got one thing out of the whole date though. I'd never lose any of them to the enemy. Over my dead body. Lola's POV. The sun was setting nicely and I was still having the best time of my life just sitting in my mate's presence. I refrained from having any bad thoughts and we just relaxed. We finished eating a while ago but he refused to bring out the dessert, claiming it was a surprise and I was going to love it so much. While I might have thrown a tantrum on the outside, I was relieved on the inside because I was so full, I could burst if I had anything to eat. "Are you not cold?" Adrian asked as he gently rubbed thumb across the skin of my palm. "Yeah, a little," I answered him and shivered again. It was already getting chilly by the lakeside since the sun was setting. And my clothes were not suitable for that kind of weather, so I was cold but I thought I was hiding it well. He must have noticed. "Come on then," he stood up and waited for me to stand before he held my hand in his and led me towards the tent. I was led towards the bed and I expected him to stay with me but he said he'd be right back. I had the urge to follow him and make sure that he wasn't leaving me but I refrained from doing such. Get a grip, Lola, I told myself and gave him a tight smile as he left the tent again. It was a little bit darker in the tent than it was outside and I resisted the urge to bite my nail due to the anxiety growing in my chest. I heard movements outside and stilled. It still seemed far away, so I tried to stop breathing and listened carefully. I breathed a sigh of relief when I smelled Adrian. I went outside to meet him and saw that he was carrying a lot of things. I helped him to bring some inside and stood with my hands on my waist. I could have helped you with this when we were coming, you know. I told him and he nodded with a smile. Yes, I do, he replied. Then why did you not mention anything about it? I asked, my hands still on my waist while glaring at him. First of all, it would have ruined the surprise. He stood up slowly and faced me with a mischievous glint in his eyes. Sir? Sir? Surprise? I stuttered, my former position long forgotten. There was something in his eyes that screamed predator and I was evidently the prey. And yes, surprise, he affirmed and took a step towards me, while I took 2 steps back. You were whining the whole way here, which I'm sure would have worsened if you had to carry anything. That is another reason, he said calmly, but the tone underlying his words promised punishment. I was strangely ready to be punished. What is wrong with me? I was so disoriented and turned on that I did not see that he was already in front of me. His arms snaked around my waist and he grinned like a Cheshire cat. If you had something in your hands, would you have been able to wrap your hands around my neck and do this? He asked just before our lips met. I wrapped my hands around his neck like I did when we first reached the lakeside and kissed him passionately. He returned my kiss with the same feverish energy. Jump, he said between kisses and I obeyed. I jumped and wrapped my legs around his waist, I moaned, at the same he groaned in pleasure. How do I take this off? He asked breathily and I was confused about what he was saying until I felt him tugging on my top. Allow me to help you, I giggled and he sighed in frustration, put me down. He dropped me gently and I removed my top, leaving me in his shirt alone. He gave me a once-over and his eyes darkened even more than they already were. You're so beautiful. Beautifully mine and mine alone, he whispered as he dragged his fingertips across my jaw and neckline, his fingers leaving a trail of heat in their wake. Without any warning, he ripped his shirt open, sending buttons flying in every direction and I gasped, both in pleasure and in shock. He pulled the shirt off my body and discarded it somewhere in the room. I expected him to touch me in one way or the other, but he just stepped back and looked at me with desire-filled eyes. I was left in my thong and knee boot and I felt so exposed. May I ask what you're doing? I asked in a small voice since he kept circling me like a predator without touching me. I don't remember asking you to speak, he said as he trailed his hands across my collarbone before choking me slightly. Stay right here, he whispered in my ear before dropping her a quick kiss on my cheeks. I released a breath I did not know I was holding as he pulled back from me. So who is now? Jasmine said in my head and I mentally gave her a death glare. To distract myself from the urge to touch myself at the sensation running through my body, I decided to engage in a conversation with her. Do I smell jealousy? I teased her and she scoffed. Police, why will I be jealous of being teased by a man that is currently lighting the candles and setting out strawberries dipped in chocolate? I looked towards Adrian and he was really setting all these things out. His muscles rippled beneath his shirt and the emotions I suppressed rushed to the surface. That man makes the simplest of things, I swear to the moon goddess. I'm so jealous, Jasmine whined in my head. I'll do anything to be in your place. I'm not even kidding, she said, and I burst out laughing. Is something funny, baby? Adrian asked and I looked at him, only for my breath to catch in my throat. Lola's POV. It was supposed to be a romantic dinner. Tell me why I felt like I unleashed a beast. This is so romantic. I love the candles and the atmosphere feels so good. We should go out for a walk, I rambled. Adrian said really at the same time Jasmine said that was a lame move. I became crimson red and wished the floor would swallow me. Adrian laughed and I hid my face in my palms. Why are you being so fidgety? Adrian asked and I peeped at him from the hole between my fingers. I have no idea why I was being fidgety, to be honest. I wanted him, but something about his aura right then felt like I was about to be preyed upon, which I like, but something feels weird. He's always pampered you during X. He was always doing what you wanted to. Seeing this side to him must be confusing, Jasmine analyzed in my head and I agreed with her. So, you don't like this side of me? He asked while he pinned me with a piercing gaze. I took a deep breath before I spoke again. You're frying my brain. Let's do this instead of punishing me this way. I can't even think straight, I rushed out and breathed a sigh of relief once it was out of my lungs. Get on the bed, baby, he spoke after a long moment of silence and I heeded without questioning anything. I sat at the edge of the bed but he shook his head and clicked his tongue. Lay on your back and spread your legs, he commanded, and I laid down. The heels of my boots were planted at the edge of the bed and I felt so exposed, save the flimsy panties I had on. I was so turned on that my body felt feverish to touch. The temperature in the room was incredibly high despite the coolness of the night. I heard things being shuffled around but they were all background noises. My heartbeat was so loud, it was the only thing I could hear. My blood pumped through my body at the speed of light. I closed my eyes. Thinking that Adrian was still busy to attend to me, I almost let out a moan but I caught myself at the last moment and bit my lips to prevent the sound from escaping and drawing Adrian's attention to me. My eyes shot open and stared into his mismatched ones. You're being very naughty. I told you to lay down, not pleasure yourself, he lightly growled and my breathing got faster. Please, Adrian. Just do something. Anything at all, I begged, my voice shaking. Something? He asked and I nodded eagerly. He cocked his head to the side like he was contemplating what I said and I waited with bated breath. Nah, you haven't earned it. You've been naughty all day and it doesn't sit well with me, he said. That's so unfair. Why does he get to touch himself but I can't? I opened my mouth to say something about it but the smirk on his face discouraged me. It was like he was waiting for me to say something about it so that he could punish me more. Got nothing to say? He taunted and I almost screamed from all the emotions running through my veins. Adrian, please, I begged. He cursed before leaning in front of me. I expected him to eat me up like he normally would but I felt something cold instead. I lost my hold on reality and felt my soul leaving my body. I screamed loudly. I had barely recovered when his tongue attacked. I writhed and tried to escape from his oh-so-amazing attack, but he held me firmly in place, leaving me with no options but to enjoy all what he was doing to my body. Yes, yes, please, Adrian, oh my goddess, oh my go, that feels so good, I moaned uncontrollably. You want to go again? I asked him, and he looked at me like I had grown another head. Are you for real? I mean, I don't mind, but will you be okay? He asked with concern, and I chuckled tiredly against him. That question should be for Jasmine, I said, and he looked at me confused. We're going to mate in our wolf forms. Adrian's POV, you want us to mate in our wolf forms? I asked her to be sure she wasn't hallucinating because she was feeling tired and maybe high from our concluded session. Yes, I'm very sure. I'm sure Dakeson wouldn't mind mating fully with his mate either, she said tiredly. No, no, we can't do that. I gently removed myself from her and paced the length of the room. She sat up with a look of hurt on her face and tears formed in her eyes. Adrian, she said gently, but I wasn't having any of it. No, no, Lola. We can't mate in our wolf form, I'll never allow that. You can't want that for us. Do you even know what the consequences are? I asked her, partly in fear and in anger. How can she try to do this to us? Dakeson growled lightly in my head, mirroring the way I felt too. Unable to think properly, I hurriedly put on my shorts and went out into the cold night, disregarding the bone-freezing temperatures outside. The turmoil inside my heart right then weighed more than whatever nature decided to do. I contemplated running off in my wolf form, but I couldn't leave her all by herself, and it might take a while for me to return back. I stood by the lakeside and looked up to the moon, silently questioning the moon goddess. Why can't I have a normal relationship with my mate like every other wolf? Why does it always boil down to making decisions between life and death? I screamed into the night and kicked the sand beneath my feet as I breathed heavily. I smelled her before I heard her and took deep breaths to calm myself down. I already F up royally by running out on her, I can't afford to make more mistakes that will make her unhappy. She wrapped her dainty hands around my stomach and I heard her sniffling, which broke my heart. I didn't mean to make her cry. I'm such a stupid. I should have at least listened to her before acting like a psycho and running off on her. I placed my hands on hers and turned around to face her. She refused to look up at me and wrapped her hands tightly around my midriff, sobbing quietly. We stood like that for a while. I rubbed her back while she silently cried, breaking my heart into a million pieces. Should we just give in to what she wants? Dakeson asked in my head, and I sighed. You know we can't do that, bud, I replied to him. I'm so sorry, Adrian, she finally spoke after a while. No, I should have listened to you. I overreacted, I'm sorry. I just don't like the idea of our wolves mating. It seals a lot of things that I can't put you through, I whispered, but I knew that she heard me. She shivered, and that was when I saw that she was just my thin t-shirt. I carried her bridal style and went back to the tent. The walk back was awkward because I did not know what to say to diffuse the tension. I don't think she had anything to say either. After we entered the tent, she was still shivering, so I got up to turn on the heater. I was half expecting her to say something like she had been doing the whole night, but she remained quiet. I sat down beside her and held her hands while the silence stretched on for miles between us. "Why?" she asked softly and I sighed. "Because I can't put you in that type of situation." She raised her head, looking at me with questions in her eyes and my breath caught in my throat. Her eyes were puffy and her nose a darker shade from her face, which meant it was red from all the crying she had done. "You don't know the circumstances surrounding it, do you?" I asked her and she shook her head. "Why does she want to mate when she doesn't even know how it works?" Dixon growled in my head and I had to take deep breaths to calm myself down and not shout at her again. "Why do you want Jasmine and Dixon to mate then?" I asked her with contained rage and what I hoped was a gentle voice and she shook her head. "I want to know, Lola. Talk to me." I tried to make her look into my eyes but she refused. "Lola, I need to know who is putting this idea into your head," I said sternly but she still refused to look at me. "For the moon's sake, who was it?" I was already raising my voice at this point but I couldn't care less. I needed to know who gave her that idea. The person could be another person trying to ruin both of us at once. "Who was it, Lola?" "Mom." She shook her head. "Lila." She shook her head. "Damon?" "Alicia." She shook her head while her lower lip trembled slightly. "Faye?" I asked and she looked at me with anger in her eyes. "How can you even ask if she's the one?" She spat at me. "Heck, she risked her life to allow me to escape. She might be dead because she wanted me to come back to you and you dare to question her." She screamed at me. My anger flared up at her words and I just spoke without thinking. "Why won't I suspect her? You've been weird since you got back. I tried my best to know what is going on with you but you keep avoiding me. You're my mate for the moon's sake, you're supposed to share your problems with me. Now, you're asking for this ridiculous thing and you just expect me to agree to whatever you ask for? Without knowing what the consequences might be or if I might be okay with it." I raised my voice at her. "Why does that even matter? What is the stupid consequence that comes with our wolf mating? Why are you making a big deal out of it?" She screamed at me also. "Because if one of us dies, the other will follow soon after. That's why." "I bet you didn't even know that," I said gently, rubbing the bridge of my nose and she became quiet. Lola's POV. I couldn't believe my ears and looked at Adrian in disbelief. Could it be that he mistook it for something else? "What do you mean by that?" "I'm sure you must be mistaken, there can't be such consequences," I said as I shook my head in disbelief. "That's why I'm asking you who gave you such an idea, Lola," Adrian said angrily and I took a step back from him. "I want to go home," I whispered. "Are you for real now?" he asked in disbelief and I nodded my head. "Yes, I want to go home now." "Please," I added the latter as a broken whisper and he did not say another word before going to a corner of the tent to bring out new set of clothes for us. He gave me a sweatshirt and short that smelled like him with a simple "put this on." I reluctantly took them from him and slowly changed into the clothes he gave me. "I wasn't expecting such a twist," Jasmine said. "Why did Selene ask us to mate in our wolf's form if it has such consequences?" She asked again but kept quiet when I had no answer for her. "We're leaving now," Adrian announced and took the lead while I followed behind him. He was cold and obviously hurt, but I just couldn't tell him that the moon goddess told me to. I needed to talk to Selene first. Wait, I called out and he stopped in his tracks. Are we just going to leave all of these here? I asked and watched his shoulder drop in disappointment. I'll take care of my own problems, Lola, he said my name with an icy tone and it felt like my heart was being crushed in my chest. But we used it together, I should help you clean it up a bit, I tried to argue. The one thing I need help with, you refused me. Don't act like you care, and with that, he went out of the tent. I clutched my chest and tried to breathe through my mouth. I was angry and hurt, but my anger wasn't directed towards Adrian. It was mostly at Selene for telling me to do something that could potentially ruin my relationship and at me for being a coward and not being able to tell the truth to my mate. I left the tent with my shoulder hunched and saw Adrian waiting outside. My heart soared with hope and I moved towards him. I felt like I had been punched in the guts when he turned and started walking back the way we came. At least, he cares enough to wait for us, Jasmine said in a sad voice, and I sighed. It was meant to be a perfect night and I ruined it. I tried to reach him through our mind link, but he had it put up. I contemplated faking a fall but stopped at the last moment. That wouldn't be fair to him and I already did enough for tonight. I wasn't expecting Rose to be awake by the time we got back to the house, but there she was, wide awake and excited when I walked in through the door. Her smile vanished when she saw the look on my face and I almost burst into tears there and then. Adrian went upstairs without acknowledging anyone and Rose looked between the stairs and I before walking towards me. Pumpkin, how was your date? Why are you back so late? Adrian told me to have the door open for you. I just decided to stay awake till you get back, but everything doesn't seem well between you. What happened, Lola? She asked with concern evident in her voice. I F up, Rose. Royally, I said and hugged her before moving towards the stairs, unshed tears shining in my eyes. We'll talk about it well in the morning. She looked like she wanted to say something but decided against it before nodding and bidding me good night. I got to the room, thinking that he'll be there and probably less angry, but the room was empty. So was the closet and bathroom. I sniffed the air and it led me to my former room. I tried to open the door but it was locked and that was my undoing. Tears cascaded down my cheeks rapidly and I held my chest from the force of the pain. I knocked but there was no reply, yet I could hear his uneven breathing which indicated that he was still awake. Adrian, I called out but I was met with total silence. Adrian, please. Can you at least answer me? Just talk to me, please, I pleaded at the door but still nothing. You can lash out at me all you want but this silence is killing me, I managed to get out through my tears. Please talk to me. I heard ruffling on the other side of the door and heard his footsteps coming towards the door. I was expecting him to open the door but he didn't. My silence is killing you but you refused to answer my own questions? How is that fair? He said, his voice breaking, which indicated that he's been crying, making me cry harder. I can't, Adrian. I really can't. I just need you to trust me on this one, I said, hoping to convince him, but it had the opposite effect. Trust? Did you just say trust? He asked angrily before he opened the door. I paused at the sight of him and my tears flowed again. His hair was ruffled like he ran his hands through it multiple times, his cheeks were stained with tears and his eyes looked so hurt. I caused that. I tried to touch his face but he pulled back from me, making my hands drop to my side. You don't get to do that? I don't think I want to be touched by a woman that doesn't trust me enough to confide in me. You know I'll burn the earth to the ground if you asked, Lola. Why are you making me feel like I never do enough or I'm not good enough for you? He asked, pain evident in his voice, and I cried harder than I already was, yet I refused to utter a word. I see that you're not going to utter a word, he sniffled and his eyes hardened. I'm not having any conversation unless it will bring answers. And with that he shut the door in my face. I didn't even bother to knock on the door anymore. It was obvious that only my answers would bring peace to our bond. I staggered and made my way to our room. Without bothering to undress, I searched my soul for the thin thread that tethered me to Selene and tugged on it. I did not manage to reach the bed before I was thrown into darkness and lost consciousness. Lola's POV. I opened my eyes and sat up only to be met with Selene's eyes. Anger and hurt surged through me and I stood up abruptly, wobbling when I became dizzy and unsteady on my feet. Calm down. Take it easy, her angelic voice reached my ears and I saw red. Take it easy. Are you joking with me right now? I asked her, channeling the anger I felt into my words. I never said it would be easy, she said softly, and I laughed. I laughed maniacally because that was the only thing I could do at that moment. I never said it was going to be easy either, I spat. I didn't care if she was the goddess of the moon or anything, she was playing with my life too much and I wasn't going to stand for that. What exactly do I plan to do? I have no idea. Have you not had enough fun with my life? I asked softly, all fight draining from my body, slowly getting replaced by grief and hurt. For 10 years, I was plunged into suffering for reasons unknown to me. The bastard you paired me with at first made me run from my pack, I said, tears streaming down my cheeks. You gave me a second chance that almost cost me my life, Selene. We fought against all odds and finally began to love each other, and now you want to take me away from him. I didn't really care that I'll be losing my life as long as everyone I love is saved, but now, you're dragging Adrian into it. I asked, clutching my chest to relieve me of the pain that was coursing through it. He wouldn't talk to me unless I gave him an answer, I cried and fell back to the grass. He believed that the person that gave the idea was trying to kill both of us at once. I sobbed and buried my face in my hands as I cried harder. The pain was unbearable for me and it seems like my heart was being torn apart from the inside. I felt soft hands on my shoulder but I refused to look up at her. None of it was your fault, Lola. He should have trusted you and allowed the mating process to be completed, she said softly, and I scoffed. Trusted me? I laughed. I wouldn't have trusted me if I had been in his shoes. You basically asked him to sign his own death warrant, knowing fully well that I was going to lose my life during the war. I looked at her, hoping she could see the storm of anger raging in my eyes. Is there no other way to do this? I asked after a while, and she shook her head. I'm afraid that this is the only way to move forward, she said. You should go back, she said, and I felt myself being pulled into the darkness again. But, I tried to speak but she shook her head at me. Trust me, child. Trust the process, and I lost consciousness. I woke up to the door being banged furiously and there was lots of noise on the other side of the door too. What the heck? I thought as I sat up groggily and tried to get my thinking together. Arg! Why is it so loud here? Jasmine said and I groaned in pain too. I swear to the moon that I'm going to break this door down if you don't open up. Lola, Adrian's voice came from the other side of the door and he seemed to be panicking. Are we under attack or something? I hurriedly stood up from my place on the floor and opened the door just as he was about to break it down. His body was already positioned to ram into the door when he saw me. His posture relaxed and he breathed a sigh of relief. Adrian," I said weakly, not sure if he still wanted to talk to me after the argument we have. He came towards me and I took a step back, not knowing what to expect. I was shocked when he reached out his hands to me and pulled me into a bone-crushing hug. "Thank goddess, you're okay," he breathed into my hair and held me closer to his body than he already did. "How did you know I passed out?" I asked and he pulled back to hold my face in his hands. "I heard a thud and thought you dropped something but everything went silent afterwards." He started speaking but I cut him off. "You were listening to all of my movements? I thought you were mad at me and did not want either have anything to do with me." I questioned him and he took a deep breath before speaking again. "I was livid for what happened, baby, I'm not going to lie," he said, and Jasmine did a happy dance in my head. "He called us baby again, that means he's no longer angry." She even howled happily in my head and it took all of my self-control to not laugh out loud. I realized that I can't leave without you, bound by a bond or not. I really can't imagine a world without you in it. "I'll follow you to the deepest pit in hell if it meant that I'll be able to stay by your side," he said softly and a rogue tear rolled my left cheek. I really don't deserve this man. It's not like I'll allow any evil before you, but the advantages that come with mating in our wolf forms surpass the downside to it. What are you trying to say?" I asked with my mouth agape and he smiled. "I want us to mate in our wolf forms, Lola," he said with a boyish grin that melted my heart. "We'll deal with the consequences later," I nodded eagerly and he laughed. "When do we fully mate?" I asked and he gave me a Cheshire cat grin. "One right now, baby. There's no point in wasting more of our time." "Lola's POV now?" I asked in disbelief and he nodded. "But we can't change into our wolf forms inside the house. You want to bring down the whole structure? 2 horny wolves in this tiny space is a no-no," I said. "Horny? Peesh, you got laid earlier today and I am the horny one?" Jasmine asked in an offended tone, making me sigh and facepalm mentally. "You are a very horny wolf and you know it," I said just to aggravate her. "At least, I'm not begging to get F," she said and I gasped. "No, you did not just do that," I retorted, but she rolled her eyes at me. "I did, and our mind link is down, which means Dixon and Adrian are listening in on this conversation," she said, and I became totally red, earning a chuckle from Adrian. "She's right, baby. You were begging to be taken," he teased, and I buried my face in his chest. "Oh, come on. Not you too," I whined and he laughed out loud. "But you're right. We can't mate in the house. Apart from them being big and horny." "Shut up, Dixon, they will wake Mom up." "We can't have that now, can we?" he said and I shook my head. "What do we do then?" You suggested mating right away, I said, and he nodded his head like he had a plan. We have to go back into the woods, he said, and I just stared at him, expecting him to laugh, but he seemed serious. You're not kidding? I asked, and he nodded his head. It's late and it's going to take a while before we can get back there. That's coupled with the fact that we don't have food or clothes. There is enough reason. Don't you think so? I asked, but he just pulled me closer and dropped a kiss on my forehead. I'm always one step ahead of you. I suggested the date, so I made plans, baby. I did, he said softly, and my resolve slowly weakened. I opened my mouth to speak, but he beat me to it. We're going to change into our wolves outside the house. I promise you're not going to regret it, he said, and I nodded. We left the room hand in hand and almost reached the door when he went back to the kitchen. I was tempted to follow him to see what he went to do, but I decided against it. He soon came back empty-handed, which had me being more curious than I already was. Why did you come back empty-handed? I asked him as soon as he was within earshot. Had to drop a letter for Mom so that she won't be confused or worried about our whereabouts when she wakes up, he said, and I nodded. I didn't even think about Rose. I was so focused on the matter at hand. Thank goddess that one of us thought about that. We entered into the cold, still night, and I shivered a bit. I looked at Adrian and he nodded his head at me before he started undressing. I looked at him undressing for a while before I cautioned myself and started undressing too. I had just pulled his shirt that I had on over my head when I heard cracking of bone and a wet nose nudged my shoulder. I giggled softly and faced him. Even though I've seen him before, Dixon's magnificence still took my breath away. His low whine took me out of my reverie. I touched his fur slowly and he growled lowly in satisfaction, making me giggle again. I'm glad to see you too, Dixon. Jasmine will be out in a second, okay? He whined softly and licked the side of my face affectionately. I moved back and imagined I was in my wolf form, relegating control to Jasmine. My bone cracked, and when I looked down again, I had paws for limbs. Dixon howled happily to the moon and Jasmine did the same thing. Since they couldn't talk in their wolf forms, they had to use the mind link. You look so gorgeous and beautiful, Dixon's voice came through the mind link and Jasmine giggled. No one would have thought that she was a powerful wolf with the way she keeps giggling. You look very amazing yourself, she replied to him, and I resisted the urge to tease her. She sounded like a lovesick puppy. They kept nudging at each other and being all cute, which tugged at my heartstring, but I managed to keep my sadness at bay. Tonight is all about having fun. We'll deal with what tomorrow brings when tomorrow comes. Shall we? Dixon asked and then dashed off towards the direction of the woods, howling at the moon. Jasmine followed behind him, howling at the moon also. This feels so nice, Lola. I don't ever want it to end, she said to me through our mind link, and I agreed. It sure does, Jasmine. It sure does. Soon, they were at the clearing near the lake. Dixon sat on his haunches and howled at the moon. The howl was different, it was a happy howl, and soon Jasmine joined him. They continued this loudly for a while. I was surprised the whole pack wasn't awake yet. Jasmine sat on her haunches and raised her head with pride and poise of every bit of royalty she is. Dixon sniffed the air before gently circling Jasmine, who sat as rigid and unaffected as possible. Oh my goddess, it's happening, she squealed like a child through our mind link, making me giggle. After circling her for what seemed like eternity but was just a few seconds, Daxon whined and nudged Jasmine's cheeks with his snout, to which she responded with a nudge of her own. The whole wolf mating process was like a breeze for me. They did a whole lot of wolfish things that I couldn't explain. Yes, I'm a werewolf, but that doesn't mean I have to be a wolf. Jasmine is already one. All I could say was Jasmine was super happy, and with every passing moment, I felt like something was about to change forever. I just couldn't put a finger on it. You okay there? Adrian's voice cut through my train of thoughts. Am I the only one that feels like something big that will change our lives forever is about to happen? I asked him the question that was bothering me. I don't think I get what you're saying, baby, he replied to me. Just when I was about to respond to him, I felt pain coursing through my body. I knew I wasn't the one feeling pain, it was Jasmine's. Jasmine. Jas. Can you hear me? What's going on? I asked frantically. The pain spread like lava through the whole of my body, almost paralyzing me. If I was going through that much pain, Jasmine's will be worse. I heard groans of pain, and it seemed like Adrian was in pain also. I tried to reach out to him, but everything seemed painful and I grew weaker by the seconds. Jas. Then darkness surrounded me. Lola's POV arg. Why is everything so loud? Adrian, what are you doing? Try to tone it down a bit. I'm trying to sleep. I mumbled from sleep, but all I got was a groan and the sounds became louder than it originally was. Adrian, I whined and tried to grab him from his side of the bed, but I touched the grass instead. Grass? My eyes shot open and I tried to sit up quickly, but I got pushed down by a heavy tree on my midriff. Ah! I groaned and tried to remove the tree from my body, only to be met with skin. Adrian's hand was draped over my stomach while he slept with his body facing away from me. I laid down back for a while and tried to remember the events that happened the day before, but I could barely focus. I could hear the ants crawling on the forest floor. The sound of their tiny appendages scraping against the surface of the earth was so loud, I could barely hear my own thoughts. It didn't help that I could hear everything going around in nature, down to the sound of the wind moving. My senses were so heightened and I could feel a headache building. Events of the day before came rushing to me. The date, the ex afterwards, my question that led to an argument, my conversation with the moon goddess, and finally, Jasmine and Daxon mating under the moonlight. I remembered that I passed out from pain and tried to reach out to Jasmine. Jasmine. Jas, can you hear me? I called through our mind link and was greeted by silence. I got scared and was starting to panic. What if she was gone? The pain was severe yesterday night, and if I could feel that much pain through our mind link, it must have been 10 times worse for her. What have I done? Why did I bring up this stupid suggestion in the first place? What is my problem? I kept thinking while trying to keep my tears at bay without waking Adrian. I didn't want to startle nor worry him. You're so dumb, Lola, Jasmine said, and I squealed with delight into our mind link. Jas, you're still here, I screamed, and she tsked. Of course, I'm still here. Your head won't hurt from hearing so many things at once if I wasn't with you, she said, and I felt kind of stupid. She was right, our wolves are the reason we have heightened senses. You're such a meanie, Jasmine, I pouted. I was just scared because you seemed to be in pain before I passed out. Are you okay? What happened? I asked. I think it was the mating process that caused it. It was immediately Daxon and I marked each other that the pain started. I don't think we're the only affected ones though, she said. Daxon seemed to be in pain also. I think you're right. Adrian seemed to be in pain and he hasn't woken up yet, despite the fact that I have been tossing around for a while. That's so unlike him, I replied to her and turned to where Adrian was laying down beside me just to find him staring at me. I shrieked and placed my hand over my thumping chest. Geez, you scared me, I said before slapping his arm that was around me. And he laughed before sitting up, groaning and holding his head in the process. I sat up slowly after him. Does your head hurt too? I asked him and he nodded. Why is that ant chewing so loudly? He asked, his head still in his hands. I giggled and covered my mouth with my hands, earning me a glare from him. At least, I'm not the only one experiencing whatever this is, I said, and shrugged my shoulders when he kept looking at me. My gaze shifted from his face and roamed all over his body, making me gasp in surprise. Adrian has always been handsome and fit. He was a werewolf after all, but his body became more ethereal. It was like there was a bubble around him projecting the aura of a god. I reached out and touched his shoulders, making tingles shoot from my fingertip to my toe. I shivered at the same time he did, meaning he must have felt it too. You feel it too? I asked him and he nodded before cupping my face. I've only seen the moon goddess once, but I can swear that you're emanating the same aura that she did, he said. You're giving off an ethereal aura too. What do you think happened to us? I asked, panic starting to set in. The consequence of what we just did dawned on me and I started getting scared. There's no reason to be scared, baby, Adrian said. I am not sacred, I said with a smile that I hoped was convincing, but he just shook his head. We're fully mated now, Lola. I can feel your emotions more than I did when our human sides mated. You're stressed and scared and I can feel it. I might not know what is stressing you, but I assure you that I'll be with you every step of the way. We can figure this out together, he said with a kiss to my forehead. Calmness and love flooded my body system, calming me down. I gave him a smile before pulling him for a passionate kiss. Things were starting to get heated before he gently lifted me off him. I pouted and he laughed. Serena is at the house. We should go and meet her, we might know the next step to take from there, he said. Did you call for her? I asked, trying to stop myself from getting anxious. No, I didn't. She must have sensed something and decided to pay us a visit. Mom just mind-linked me that she was at the house, Adrian said, and my heart missed a beat. The last time I saw her was after I escaped from Damon and learned about her psycho sister. Why do I have a feeling that meeting her again isn't a good idea? Adrian stood up and held out his hand for me to hold. I took his hand and he led me towards the tent. He found some clothes for me and dressed up himself. The air was thick with worry and anxiety and we barely spoke to each other. I guess Adrian thought exactly the same thing I did. When we left our spot after Adrian said he'd come back to clear everything and made our way to the house. Here goes nothing. Lola's POV. My heart was beating erratically as the house came into view. I tried to stall Adrian a bit before we went inside, but he managed to make me move towards the house. I sincerely still feel like we should have cleared up that lakeside. I feel bad that you would have to go back to clear it by yourself, I said after a while, just to stall and not go into the house. I think I might just leave everything there. You seem to like it there, and it can be our personal getaway after everything is peaceful again, Adrian said, and I gritted my teeth. Calmness washed over me through our mind link and I breathed in deeply. It's okay, baby. We'll be together every step of the way. I'll be with you no matter, he said through our mind link while squeezing my hand lovingly. I took a deep breath as he held the door open for me to enter. I sent him a small smile and walked in, Adrian following behind me almost immediately. Rose was the first to attack me when I walked into view. Oh my goddess! I almost had a panic attack when I woke up and you were not in your room, she rushed out while gently patting my face. I was about to alert the whole pack until I saw Adrian's note in the kitchen stating that you were out in the woods for the rest of the night. Why were you out in the middle of the night? She asked, and I turned crimson red while Adrian cleared his throat behind me. Their wolves had to mate, Serena said from where she was seated. I gasped and looked at her with an agape mouth. Serena. I called, but she just shrugged her shoulders like she did not just drop a bomb. Their wolves did what? Rose turned to us with a shocked face and I slowly backed into Adrian, who held a protective arm around me. Rose's face slowly went from shock to pained. Do you not know the consequences of what you've done? She asked, her voice rising with every passing second. Mom, we know and we both consented to it, Adrian spoke up from behind me, but I could feel how his body went rigid and tensed up. Why? Why would you do that to me? She asked, and I bowed my head in shame. Maybe I shouldn't have agreed with Adrian. I knew I was going to be losing my life, which would definitely cause Rose pain. The pain is only going to compound when she loses her son shortly afterwards. I was about to open my mouth to speak, but Serena beat me to it. Now, calm down, will you? She spoke, speaking to no one in particular. Rose looked like she wanted to say something but decided against it and went back to where she was sitting, pain and betrayal evident in her eyes. I wanted to go to her, but Adrian held me back and pressed me closer to him. She's hurt right now. Nothing you say will change her mind, he said through our mind link, and I tried to blink back my tears. Are you just going to stand there? We need to talk, Serena said. Adrian and I moved to the only available chair. He sat down before setting me onto his laps, the physical contact calming me down a bit. So, what's going on? Adrian asked Serena, whose face and body was rigid. I took a good look at Serena and noticed that she was different from the Serena I knew. Her face was sunken and she looked to have lost weight. Her hair looked dull and her skin seemed to have lost some of its shine. She must have been stressed over what happened with her twin sister since we last saw each other. The war is upon us, I can feel it in the air. The fact that your wolves already mated means it's already here. You need to be prepared. You need to work hand in hand to defeat what is coming, she said in her robotic voice with unfocused eyes. Can you tell us what we need to do? Guidance? Things to put in place? I asked, hoping that she would give us a direction at least. It's up to you to figure out, she said. Teamwork is important. You have to work with yourself and learn to trust others around you, she added, making me further confused. I should leave. My work here is done, she said, and stood up. I stood up after her and held her hands in mine. I pulled her into a hug and whispered into her ears, "How are you holding up? I want to be the one to handle her this time around. I need to finish what I started," she replied to me with a cold voice that sent shivers down my spine and pulled from me. She bowed slightly at Adrian before moving towards the door, followed by a quiet Rose. The door opened and closed after a while and I waited with a bated breath. Rose came into view but she ignored us and walked up the stairs. "Adrian," I turned to him with tears in my eyes and he stood up to hug me. "She will come around. Give her time to process it." "It took me a while to process it too, didn't it?" he asked while cradling my head and wiping the tears that managed to escape. "Let's get you cleaned up and well rested, shall we?" I nodded and made to walk but he scooped me into his arms, making me squeal. I nestled into his chest and wrapped my hands around his neck, allowing myself to be lost in the warmth of his embrace. It will only be a matter of time before everything comes to an end, so I plan to make the most of it. Washing up happened like I was in a trance. I really couldn't remember what happened. The last thing I remembered was drifting off into a peaceful slumber, cocooned in the warmth of my mate's embrace. Lola's POV. "Wake up, beautiful," a voice said and I swatted in the direction I heard it from. "Wake up, Lola," the voice said again, deepening than it initially was. I wanted to swat in the direction it came from again but I couldn't quite pinpoint it. The sound was everywhere in my head and my eyes shot open in panic. I took in my environment and saw that I was in our room. I turned to where Adrian was sleeping and he was already grinning at me mischievously. "I should have known that you're the one." I don't know why I was panicking, I huffed, and faced towards the ceiling with a roll of my eyes. "I'm hurt you still don't know my voice in your head after all these while," he said and I turned to glare at him. "I was sleeping," I snapped. I didn't mean to snap but I was on edge. The look on Rose's face after we told her what happened still breaks my heart and I felt bad that I was the cause of her heartbreak. "Are you still worked up over what happened with Mom in the morning?" Adrian asked beside me and I sighed deeply. "We were responsible for her pain." "How are you not bothered about that?" I said before sitting up and turning my back to him so that he won't see the tears in my eyes. "I'm not supposed to be so weak," I thought to myself. "You're not weak at all, baby. You're one of the strongest people I know," Adrian's voice rang in my head and I smiled a little. If only he knows. I should go and see her. I made a move to stand up from the bed when my stomach decided to growl in hunger. "And I should get you fed," Adrian said from beside me. I turned crimson red to which he chuckled. "You should go and freshen up. I'll whip up something for you to eat real quick," he said as he stood from the bed and started to pull on a shirt. My eyes did not miss the way his muscles contracted and Jasmine purred in my head. "Down, girl," I teased her and felt her rolling her eyes. Adrian gave me a kiss on my forehead before he stepped out of the room. I went into the bathroom to clean up. While doing so, I tried to see what Adrian was going through our mind link but I couldn't see anything. At some point, I felt agitation, pain, and sadness that wasn't mine. I hurriedly finished up with what I was doing and threw on the closest piece of clothing that my eyes landed on. The nearest clothes happened to be one of Adrian's t-shirts. I grabbed one of my shorts and threw it on, rubbed my hair with a towel and left it down to dry. I quietly left the room and tried to eavesdrop on their conversation, but it stopped almost immediately. I moved slowly and hoped to get anything from what was being said, but I couldn't hear anything. I wanted to know what triggered Adrian, but I couldn't hear anything. You know it is rude to eavesdrop, don't you? Adrian's voice came through our mind link and I froze where I was. Of course he caught me, that's why everything suddenly became silent. I was just wondering what make you agitated and sad, I said, revealing just a part of my reason. Truth was that I wanted to know what he was discussing with Roses so that I could know how to approach her also. I stopped at the entrance to the kitchen and I could almost cut through the tension in the air with a knife. Adrian's body was rigid and Rose had puffy eyes and looked like she didn't sleep a wink all night. "Hi, baby," Adrian said and I waved at him shyly. "Hi, Rose," I said and almost bit my tongue with how lame that sounded. She nodded her head at me in acknowledgement and I sighed deeply. "I want to go and take a shower. I'll be back in a minute," Adrian said to nobody in particular and left the room before I could say a word. I cleared my throat and moved closer to where Rose was stirring something on the fire. "Do you need help with anything?" I asked, but she shook her head. It felt like I had been slapped across the face and I tried not to cry again. I can't keep crying at every little inconvenience. "I think I like it better when you lash out at me," I started. "This silent treatment is killing me, Rose. I'm sorry that we did what we did, but we had to do it," I finished. She turned to me so fast with a fire blazing in her eyes that I took a step back. "You had to do that? There was no other thing to do apart from that? You guys knew the consequence and still went ahead with it," she said and tears rolled down her eyes. Looking at her swollen eyes, knowing that she's going to lose both of us after a while, my tears cascaded down my cheeks and I went to pull her in for a hug. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It was something I had to do, that we had to do. I'm so sorry, Rose. You wouldn't have agreed if we told you, but it is a necessary evil," I whispered in her ears as I kept hugging her over and over. "We could have found a way. I'm sure there would have been another way if we had searched deeper," she said defeatedly. She knew we had to do it too. She just didn't want to admit that. She hugged me tightly and sobbed into my shirt as I rubbed her back and tried to keep my own tears in. "The food on fire is going to burn," I said after a while, and she hurriedly put off the fire. I looked around properly and realized that she was cooking up a feast. "Are we expecting visitors?" "Let me guess, the gang wants to come over?" I asked and she nodded with a smile. "Lila has been constantly claiming that her baby wants to see her godmother and you also refused to pick her calls. She threatened to bring down the house if she doesn't get fed when she comes visiting," she said, and we both laughed. "You should have called me to help you then," I said. "This is a lot to prepare by yourself." "I was angry at you and besides, this is therapeutic for me," she replied to me. I was about to counter her when the doorbell rang. "I'll get it," I told her and skipped to the door. I was expecting to see a grumpy Lila, smiling Avianca, and laid-back Nathan, but I was met with a completely different person. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.